All right, Bill, welcome to the Lathrop podcast. It's November 3rd, into a new month here, and on to another podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank goodness it's Friday and ready to rock and roll for the weekend. So looking forward to it.
Feels like we're kind of getting into the winter weather finally. Stuff is kind of starting to darken up. It's getting a little cozier, even though I don't love it getting dark so early, as we'll get, 4 p.m. darkness coming up in about a month or so. But for now, we're hanging in there, getting through the transition, and we're getting excited for our busiest time of the year. Kidding. Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up here in the mortgage world. So,
yeah, the world has moved ahead. There's Christmas advertising out there. The stores are all ready to go. I mean, it's amazing. And now the weekend activity is raking leaves and cleaning up your yard.
But we do have some good news a little bit. It seems like we're getting into more of a buying opportunity for the last couple months of 2023 here. Rates have come down just a little bit this week. Inventory is still sort of out there with not as competitive as it has been the past couple of years. So we're seeing a little bit where the rates just a little bit better. Inventory is still somewhat available. Competition, I would say, is at a medium level, not an insane level. You're still seeing some multiple offers go out, but nothing that I'm seeing is necessarily like crazy overpriced. And I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but we're kind of seeing some normalizing and a little bit of softness for the winter here, which I think is a great opportunity for people to get into something ahead of the springtime when who knows what rates are going to be doing 6 months from now, but we know for sure that's going to be a busy buying season.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this time of year, everybody starts thinking towards 24, right? Getting ready for 2024 already. But the bottom line is we still have November and December. And the sellers that are out there looking to sell their home now, they're serious. Because who wants somebody tromping through your house before Thanksgiving and before Christmas? They're on the market because they're not just seeing what'll happen. They want to sell their home. So I think if you're prepared, like we've always stressed, get pre-qualified. You can never do too early. Do it now. Be pre-approved. Get your full-blown approval. So when you go to make an offer, now I think your sellers are going to be listening because you're right, though. The inventory is an issue. So there's only so many homes out there. And if it's a nice home, a lot of people want it. So make sure your offer is ready to go and you can perform. And I think that's where we always say service comes into play. I think it's huge because you can get the loan closed, which could be a factor. If you have to close in 14 days on a purchase, we can do that, right? And everybody can't. And that's what's nice to be local and get things ordered out quickly and make it happen. That can make the difference you get in the house or not in a competition.
And I think there's some lenders in town that are pretty good. Luckily, here in Thurston County, we actually have a pretty great offering of local loan officers. But it's people that are prepared that can close that quickly. Even if your company can close fast and has good operations, you and your loan officer still need to be prepared. And I would say act somewhat judiciously as getting your stuff in and going quick. So yes, people can do it quickly if you're supplying your documentation, getting back to your loan officer, and working with them to help you get approved that quickly.
Absolutely.
So just a little asterisk I want to put out there is we can all move pretty quick if we're working together.
Absolutely. But also make sure your information's up to date. If you started this, 4 months ago and you're still waiting for that home to pop up and now it pops, make sure your stuff's up to date, that your lender is not going to get you at the 12th hour going, hey, your pay stub or your bank statement or where's this money coming from? It's all scored away. You're good to go. And you can make that solid offer because you need to do that in this market if you want your offer accepted. And we've all seen it happen. People don't understand that, if it's competitive, make sure you know how far you're willing to go. Be prepared because these homes don't hang around and there's not another one around the corner right now waiting if you miss this one. So I think that's the hardest thing. But I do think it's a time where if there's a home out there, you're serious, the seller will be serious. You might get them to come in and pay some money maybe toward a 2-1 buy down to get you through this period of strange interest rates, and then it comes back, or even pay toward your closing costs. So it makes your acquisition much more achievable.
And that's one where if you're going to go buy a house and you have a loan officer and a real estate agent, make sure that they get introduced and they're talking to each other, because your loan officer might have some tools to help you manage your payment or get some, if you have the seller paying some costs or whatever, there might be some strategic things that your loan officer and your realtor can work on together to make an offer saying, hey, we're going to offer this price. We want this much credit so that we can do a buy down or we can manage the rate or whatever that is. So that's one thing where sometimes I feel like the customer doesn't want to introduce me to their realtor. Like they've got something in their pocket. Like, oh, don't talk to my realtor yet. I haven't made up my mind on something. It's like there's no advantage. If you want to use a different loan officer, that's fine. But still, introduce the one you start working with to your agent to see if there's a relationship there. You can always change, but I think that those introductions are really valuable, and it makes a difference for us being able to structure the total package for them, not just the mortgage, because you need to have your mortgage lined up with your offer so that you're really getting the best of both worlds.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because your agent, the first thing they're going to ask the lender, how quick can you close? That's the first thing they want to know, because that's the power of their offer. And so you got to have all your ducks lined up, or your cards, whatever you want to call it, on the table, be ready to go, and everybody on the same page and working together, because that's how these things work. You don't want to bump into anything at the 12th hour, especially this time of year, and it's just a different time. It's a different market we're going through, and make sure you do make it all count.
Okay, so I want to kind of go back to the intro there where I said, hey, it's a great winter buying opportunity. There's a couple of reasons I said that. It's not just me having feel-good feelings, but the Federal Reserve has these rate announcements, whether they're going to raise or lower or do nothing to the short-term federal funds interest rate, which is the rate that banks can borrow money from at each other and has all these other implications on what the market's doing. The Federal Reserve chose to not hike or lower the rate this time, which was an announcement they made this week, which was good for rates and helps kind of keep things a little bit stable for now. So that's the number one aspect of how rates were able to kind of improve just a little bit. The secondary aspect of the inventory piece going into the winter, like you said, people don't sell on their house over Thanksgiving and Christmas for fun. It's because they have to, or they're trying to make some other move happen. So like we said, we're seeing serious sellers through this time of year. Prices should be hopefully appropriate, not pie in the sky numbers. And that's the foundation for why I'm saying, hey, this winter, you might have a small opportunity between now and the springtime to get a little bit of a better deal than what we've been looking at the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, this week, the best movement we've seen in rates in some time, because it's been progressively moving up, which we saw them getting into the eights, and now is the time, if you haven't talked to your lender in a couple of weeks, call them today before the weekend. If you're out looking, find out where the pricing is, because it's improved no matter where you are.
And I would say your loan officer is responsible for reaching out to you to tell you what rates are doing. You're also responsible to check in on your own pre-approval and say, hey, loan officer, are my terms and my payments still looking the same? I'm going to go out this weekend. So dual responsibility there. Your provider should be professional and keep up with you. You also have the responsibility yourself to say, hey, I want to make an offer this weekend. Is my payment still what I thought it was going to be?
Yeah. Well, I know that, 2 weeks ago, nobody wanted to call anybody because what rates were like, when's it going to stop? And then this last week, plus coupled with, like you said, the Fed holding steady, unemployment numbers came out today showing a little weakness out there, which is good for mortgage rates, not good for the economy, but good for mortgage rates. And so the numbers that we want to see for our side of the, game all came in our favor. And so we're seeing a little bit of benefit of that. Nobody knows how long that lasts, because that's what controls our market these days. There's no government buying mortgage-backed securities to the nth degree, making things stay down there like it was, 2 years ago. So that stuff is all sensitive, but it's all favorable this week. So if you're shopping this weekend, you're in better shape than you were a week, 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely.
So it's a time to take a look at it.
So what else do you have on your menu that you want to talk about for today? I know we've had a couple different ideas this week about where to take the podcast, what direction, but what are you feeling like you want to share and get into right now?
Well, the other thing I think is the NAR lawsuit that's gone on. It's been in the public, out there, and everybody hearing different sides of it. And I'm not here to tell you which side is which, but I think the biggest key.
And let me pause you real quick. NAR is the National Association of Realtors, and they got caught in a big lawsuit this past week of was a $1.8 billion fee.
Yeah, they're paying back to 250,000 sellers.
Right. So basically the thing is here that they were complicit in kind of controlling some fees and making commissions too high.
Basically, the bottom line is what's come out is there's buyer agency is erupted out of that. Well, Washington State has been ahead of the curve. They've been doing this. Now in January 24, they'll be required to do it. They've been ahead of the curve. So most people are aware of that. And one of the biggest concerns is one of the top loan products out there across the country is the VA loan. Well, this new proposal is, a buyer could pay their own, the seller may not have to pay your 3% commission to your agent that's representing the buyer. Well, you can't, VA, a veteran cannot pay that fee. They're not allowed to per VA. Okay. They're not allowed to per VA, whether they want to or not, whether they're capable or not. They just can't. So that eliminates a ton of solid buyers in this marketplace. So with that being said, Washington's already ahead of that curve. It has buyer agency agreements and so forth. And people be educated on this if they haven't already been. Most agents have already pre-educated folks on this. So it's probably we waited a long time for this to come out, but Washington's probably ahead of the curve as far being prepared for it, unlike the East Coast, where they don't have that type of scenario.
So basically, let's kind of unpack this a little more, because I feel like we're skirting around the actual topic, and people that might not know about that would be a little confused. So basically, when you sell a home, the home seller is responsible to pay the real estate commissions for the real estate agent for both the buyer side and the seller side. What's the questionable now is, why is the seller paying the commissions on the buyer's real estate agent, right? That's kind of the whole big thing.
Right.
So in Washington, you have a form that discloses that, the buyer's agency form. And so that's the disclaimer, basically, that everybody else should be using and will probably have to use in the future here, maybe amongst some other stipulations that come out from this lawsuit.
Yeah, the key thing is, you hit the nail on the head, is to have to pay this fee. Well, if you don't pay it, you're going to lose a sector of people that will not show your home. I mean, there's all reasons why you would lose. I think everybody's tried to say, hey, I'm going to go with the lowest commission possible, lowest listing agreement. Well, you know what? Go try to sell your house by yourself. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and you'll understand it when you sell a home and even when you buy a home. These people that are doing it, they earn their money. And, agents that know what they're doing, it makes a huge difference. You try to do it on your own, and you got to represent, everybody walking through your house. You don't know if they're qualified or not. And then you got to go check out what I have to do for my septic. What inspection do I have to answer to? How do I respond to this? All those details are covered. That's why they take care of you. And that's why people do pay commissions, because you want it to be smooth. You don't want any litigation following you after the fact. You want to make sure you disclosed everything, you did everything correctly. So agents are vital. And I think the good news is Washington's always been a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to technology or doing things correctly, I think, versus the East Coast. And watch me get slammed for that one. But anyhow, that's good news for this. And the agents you talk to around town, because they're very aware of it. They've already, I'm sure they've talked to people that are in the market already about this. And if you want to deal with an agent that is educated and prepared, and that's why it's key to talk to them about this stuff. You hear on the news, you don't get the full story. That's the hardest thing. And you got to see how it affects your market. And I think the West Coast is ahead of the curve on that. And it's great. And the agents we have here in Thurston County, it's funny. We have great lenders. We got some great agents. And I think that's probably throughout the state. But we also know it's challenging for some that haven't really followed all the details and do all the due diligence they should. So, but yeah, I think I think that's going to be a big factor coming out in the press. I think, with all the companies, they're going to have to address it if they haven't already.
Well, and it's a big thing, because when you're going to go buy a house, you don't necessarily have extra money to pay the commission for your real estate agent. So the whole idea behind this is that the seller is selling the house, and the home is worth more than hopefully they owe on it. So out of those proceeds, they're able to pay the agent, and you basically just build it onto the seller's side. So, that seller, if they sell their house, they're going to have to buy another house. They don't have to pay their agent when they're a buyer. So it always gets you kind of on the one side, but it should even out that way, because if you buy a house, then you're going to sell a house. And so you're only paying at the one time.
I think the key word is these things are negotiable. And that's it, where before they try to say set a certain standard or a certain level, and that is what doesn't work. And so, but I do think that, the way of doing business, I don't think will change that much in our part of the country, because you need to have it factored in, because the biggest challenge for consumers today is acquisition costs, getting into a home, the affordability, the down payment, closing costs, et cetera. So you go and add 3% on top of that, roughly.
Yeah. What would you say in your experience overall in your career? Is it easier to qualify people for the payment, or do more people seem to have a down payment saved up with little income. It seems more like if you find someone, usually income is what they have, and cash to make the down payment, on average, seems to be the harder part to come by.
The savings.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think now, this past year, with inflation and all the crazy numbers we've been dealing with fuel prices.
And massive credit card debt in the country.
Governor. Yeah. Yeah. And people, during this time frame of not, adapting to the increased costs, have increased their credit expenses in some cases, because it's just what's happened in 23. So yeah, that has been, always will be. Some people are very diligent and have saved money, and that's great, or have equity in the home they're selling, which most people do today. That's great. But the person coming into the market without a home to sell, and they're early on in their 20s, let's say, where have you had a chance to save up a ton of money after you got out of school or started your job, et cetera? So that's the biggest challenge, I think.
And then something I was thinking about yesterday, actually preparing for the podcast, there's all these zero down options out there. So State Bond will do a down payment for you if you qualify for that. USDA has a zero down program. There's other programs that allow zero down. The problem with those is that if you qualify for the loan, you probably make too much money to qualify for the zero down part, because the zero down loans have income restrictions and other restrictions, geographic restrictions as well on USDA. So yes, zero down is out there, and we're happy to talk about that. If we can get you a zero down loan that's not a VA loan, awesome.
State bond goes up there. The Washington State bond goes up there pretty high
for income limits.
Yeah,
they're like 150K or something,
which is aggressive, I think, which is great, but the challenge is, if you can get a down payment, even if being 3%, 3.5%, going FHA, or 3% down conventional, the differential savings is tremendous.
The terms you're able to get making your own down payment are way better as far as interest rate and monthly payment go, versus doing a zero down option. You're going to get a little bit of a higher interest rate. And there's a give and take, right? Just like everything in life, it's a compromise.
Because I think what's great about those programs is it enables you to get into a home where you couldn't before. Because if you're looking at a sales price of $500,000 and you're looking at 5% down, that's $25,000 plus closing costs. Even 3% down is $15,000 plus closing costs.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to save and to put down, and then, then you got to go from that point. So yeah, it could be substantial, and I don't think anybody's got money burn a hole in their pocket in this world today, because everything's gotten a little more expensive.
Right.
But we're seeing things come down. My gosh, gas is almost down to under $4 in the state of Washington.
Well, I think I filled up for like $4.65 or $4.70 or something today.
You're probably using premium.
Premium, yep.
Okay, yeah.
But the other thing, watch out for those gas stations that are close to the freeway, because those ones are always a lot more expensive than the ones that are off the beaten path a little bit.
I know. You think, did you guys update your prices yet?
Yeah.
Because some of them, I think the lowest I've seen for, regular is like $4.19 in Thurston County, which I think is great. And, but compared to where it was, because we were up over $5.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it makes it a little bit more affordable to travel. And eventually that will reduce the cost for everything else we have to pay for. But so much for the economics lesson. But I think now is a great time, to reiterate where you started out, to be out there looking. It may be a little windy and blustery out there, but if you're qualified, you're ready to go, take a look now if you can find something. I know that I saw a house this weekend. It's open, nice looking home. There's a few open houses out there. If you have the time to get out there, take a look.
And also, we can touch on something. Didn't we just learn about this open house thing? So we've talked to a couple agents that they say, hey, the houses that I list are pretty much always open. You just have to call me to get into it, and we'll send someone out there right away. So we're not necessarily going to have open houses on every listing, because it's really hard to catch someone with a 2 or 3 hour window on a weekend.
I think it's key. That particular agent, very good plan, because that's new construction. And so you can't have somebody out there 24/7, or, something comes up, but he's got it set up that if you reach out to him, just, text him, call him, he'll get somebody out there to show you the house, which is great. Then you got a personalized one-on-one open house, versus walking through with a group of people. So I think that's great. I think agents have gotten creative, to how to represent their properties to get them to the public and so forth, what's going on. And I think you got to do your due diligence and get out and take a look, but get out there and see what's available. Sometimes looking at online doesn't give you the full scoop. Drive the neighborhood, get the feel what's out there and what's going in around there. And
Yeah, you'll know almost right away once you get into the house. But when I was shopping for my home, I get real excited about everything. And so I got all excited about all these houses. And then I walked into this one split level. I'm like, oh, I'm 5'8". My head is touching the ceiling. Like, what is this little place? And it felt cramped and didn't look anything like how it came across on the pictures. It did have a great yard and location and a few other things. So there's that. But it's like, yeah, get into that property, get a real feel for it. If you're anything like me, you'll get excited about all sorts of different things for different reasons because you're optimistic. But getting out there and really getting brass tacks and go from optimist to realist when you're trying to actually make the decision, that's very helpful to get out there in person.
Yeah, I think it's great to drive the neighborhood, know what's going on in that area, and be familiar with it. I drove out to one last week in Rochester, and it was a gorgeous day. Drove out there, but then you realize it's not that far out there, and there's a lot of space out here. So that's what you're looking for. Drive a little further out, and that part of I-5 is easiest part to go up and down. You go north, different story. So, but it's get out there, get a feel for what's available in Thirsty County. It's a great place to live. Lots of neat places out here, and even through this crazy wintry time, so it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's keep it short and sweet for today. We'll cap the podcast here. We've got a couple things coming up this next week with a couple events I'm trying to plan for maybe some headshot and some other content creation for real estate agents. So look for that in the future, you guys, and hope you have a great weekend. Bill, thanks for joining me on the podcast today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
All I can say is the Kraken won last night. They're on a roll. And Huskies are playing the Trojans tomorrow. So let's keep that rolling for the Dogs. And let's root for those Seahawks on Sunday and have a great weekend and button up because the weather's going to get a little funky next week. But
absolutely.
Hey, if we're in the Northwest and we love living here, just get your overcoat on and have fun.
That's right. Okay, well, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for the insight. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Bye.